What I'm going to demonstrate is how to create joinery that works correctly with the TF Rubies. For my example, I'm just going to use this bent that needs a collar tie here. It sits on top of the queens and supports the rafters midspan. So what I've got down here is just a generic timber that's an 8x10, and I'm just going to set it on top of the queens here, and that's what I'm going to use as my joinery example. So for my first step, I'm just going to create some butt joints here as a launching point for my joinery. So I'm going to edit the timber, and I'm just going to create the butt joint by scribing with the line tool and then sweeping away with the push tool. Do the same on both sides. Line tool and push pull. Okay, so now I've just got the ends trimmed off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this component out here in empty space. Remember that when you edit a component, you change all instances. If you change one, you change them all. So when I make changes to my working copy out in space, I'm also going to be changing my original back here in the bent. So just zoom in on this, double click to edit it, and we'll start out by creating the housing. And we can use the push-pull tool along with the control key so that I leave the original face behind. I'm going to pull out a 1-inch housing. The push-pull tool always works perpendicular to the face, so I've got this extra little triangle here I need to get rid of, and I'll just use the line tool and the push-pull tool to get rid of that. Now, I want my housing to be a nice even number, so I'm just going to use a tape measure. I'm going to come down here. Looks like 12 inches is going to work nicely, and from there I'm going to use the push-pull tool to make it exactly 12 inches. I don't need that mark anymore. And now I've got this little extra corner here that needs to be taken off. Okay, that's the housing that I want, and now I need to add the tenon. So I'm just going to take this line here, use the move tool and make a copy of it to the center, and then back off 1 inch, which is half the width of the housing, and then make a copy at 2 inches, which is the width of my tenon. Use the push-pull tool and pull out the tenon, say 4 inches. Okay, again I got to sweep away this extra corner on the top. This time I'm going to use the tape measure tool to make a level line starting from here that'll make it easier for me to draw this line across. Again, push-pull tool, sweep it away. And I've left this little extra line here to delete, and I don't need this guideline anymore. And there's my tenon. Now I've created all the joinery for it. Now I have to do the steps to create an actual joint. So I'm positioning the object here so that I can select all the pieces of geometry that are part of the tenon but not part of the timber. So there I've got that. And now I'm going to right click and say make component. Now I want to make sure that replace selected is set and glue to any. Now notice that the plane that it draws for me, this is going to be the cutting plane or the gluing plane. This needs to be where the two timbers meet. So it's the housing line. It's the underside of the rafter. Now I need to change it because it's now at a level and I want it along this line. So I'm going to say set component axes and then touch 3 points on that plane. There. So now you can see that it's along this line where the two timbers are going to intersect. If I want, I can give it a name. I'll call it collar tenon and hit create. Now the last step here is to right click on it and say TF create joint, and that's what tells the Rubies that this is a joint that's going to cut a mortise into the other timber. Okay, I'm going to leave peg holes for another demonstration, so let's just stop editing this timber. And if we zoom out, we'll see that the same change was made to our actual copy in the model. Now I would duplicate this joint on the other side, but I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to show you how this works. I'm going to delete my working copy and test it to see if it works. And I'm going to test it by seeing if it cuts a mortise in the rafter. So I right click on the rafter and select make shop drawings, and sure enough, there's my mortise right there. It's prompting me to save the shop drawings. I'm not going to do that. We'll just not save the shop drawings and go back to the original. And there you have it. That's how you roll your own joint from scratch.